Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. We're going to get started here, but thanks for attending the webinar on managing ISO and other regulatory compliance. Just a little bit of housekeeping to get started. I'm John Daintree from Pro Technology, and at the bottom left of your screen, you should see a Q&A icon. And if you have any questions that come up, if you just click on that, type those questions in, they'll get sent to us. We're hoping that we'll have a little time at the end of the presentation to answer some of those questions. But any questions that aren't answered today, we will be reaching out to you in the next couple of days or week, and we'll be able to answer those questions if we don't manage to get to answer them today. So thanks. Just put your questions in there. I believe you are all on mute and will be kept on mute, but if you can unmute, we ask that you do stay muted through the presentation, just so that we don't get feedback and things like that. Okay, so let's get started. Thanks again for coming. We appreciate the time. And as I said earlier, I'm John Daintree with Pro Technology, and we're very lucky to have with us today a couple of people, Guy Olivier from Lean Dynamix. Guy is an early graduate from the Toyota Management Grooming program, and he stayed at Toyota to start his career and became a manufacturing engineer and manager. And from his time at Toyota, he became an expert in lean methods inspired by the Toyota production system. And since Toyota, he's served in various management and executive roles in CNC operations, in semiconductor manufacturing, and in aerospace, building jet-powered drones for the US Air Force. Guy is now the owner and main consultant at Lean Dynamix, and Lean Dynamix helps their clients profit through waste reduction. And they do this by streamlining and teaching organizations to recognize, reduce, and circumnavigate wasteful practices while focusing on value. He's also helped many companies such as Mercedes-Benz achieve and maintain ISO and other regulatory requirements. So thanks. We're happy to have Guy, and thanks, Guy, for taking the time to do this with us today. And your experience in this area is great. Then we also have Alex, who is the senior consultant and systems engineer at Sword. And Sword is a global leader in providing governance, risk, and compliance management software. They were established in 2000, and they're a multinational company that operates in over 50 countries. They have over 500 customers in many different industries. As you can see, some really big names: Coca-Cola, Siemens, Heineken, Campbell's, and things like that. So Alex, thanks for jumping on and helping us show us how the Sword policy management software can help with compliance and ISO. And then a little bit about Pro Technology. We've been around since 1996, and we're headquartered in the Los Angeles area. We have offices around the country and a couple around the world. We're known as document automation specialists, and we have a few hundred customers throughout North America and around the world, and also in a lot of different industries. But we do a lot with manufacturing and have worked with companies like GE, Hershey, 3M, and Toyota. And in order to deliver solutions for our customers, we have a range of our own software, but we also partner with best of breed technologies like Sword in order to deliver solutions to our customers. So thanks again, everybody, for joining. I see we've got a few more people that have joined while I was giving the intros, but I'm going to hand it back over to Guy and to Alec. We'll get started here. So Guy, over to you. And if I can page down, whoops, there we go. Now we're working. Guy, over to you, please.
Thanks, John. Much appreciated for that comprehensive introduction. And as John mentioned, certainly hello, everybody. I hope we can provide you with a good explanation of the software, as well as some tips on how to improve. As John mentioned, my background is with the Toyota production system, heavily dominated by lean transformations with a myriad of different companies. I'm based in Northern California, and have worked with, had the fortune or misfortune in some cases to work with a myriad of different industries, including adding or helping organizations implement things like ISO and other levels of regulatory compliance. When I was asked to review the software, I got pretty excited, because while in many of the, especially manufacturing and even in the service field, it's easy to tackle a lot of the production processes because they're tactile, you can see them. The tenets of improvement are all there. You have a very visual environment where you can see product moving from raw material to finished goods. You've got the participation of those adding value. It's easy for them to comply with their training because it's immediate, and normally production environments and even service environments are measurable. You can measure them, you can see the result, and so implementing policies and procedures and work instructions have typically, that area of organizations comes to the forefront, and that's where most of the lean implementations are levied and focused. But there's another part of organizations and lean transformations that is not so visual. We don't get the participation or the ease and the measurable aspect of it, and that's with policies, and it's with standards and compliance. These are often aspects of the business that are hidden. They're abstract in many cases. They're issued by technical writers, and of course they're tremendously difficult to measure. And as technology has expanded, packages and systems like SWORD emerge, I get really excited because these are areas that often get neglected in the generation or the creation of a culture, the collective habit within an organization that we all know exists. How do you ensure that people first know and understand what's expected of them, and that you can monitor progress in abstract things like training, right? And so these are the areas that have always posed, traditionally at least, posed some of the biggest problems for organizations in their transformation journeys. And what makes me excited about a technology like SWORD is that here is a system whereby, if properly applied, the deployment of something like ISO 9000, and we'll use this example today, the ISO 9000 2015 standard. We'll use examples, and Alec will walk us through that, on how do we deploy that communication and that record creation down through an organization, not just so that ISO certification is a marketing tool, and we can put it on our website and say, look, we're ISO, but also that we can leverage ISO in the intended value, delivering value to the customer, and more importantly, creating profit for your own organization by reducing the waste that so often occurs with policies and procedures that collect dust and don't find their way into the collective habit of the organization. So normally, step one is you've got the standard, the ISO standard. As we go with this analogy and this example, how do we take those policies and procedures that we now have. The technical writers have completed it. They've put it into the system. And I'm going to introduce you to Alex. He's going to talk us through the communication of bringing that to life with the employees. Alex?
Thanks very much, Gar. And hi, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen. Right. Okay, so I'm going to be presenting using two different logins, and within any typical organization, there are different personas of users that use Sword Policy Manager. And one is your general employee, persons who just need to read and acknowledge documents, or they need to find documents when they need it. And then you have the other persona of a more administrative person that will be creating these documents, submitting them for review and approval, and ultimately publishing those documents. So the dashboard that you're looking at is a general employee dashboard. Easy, simple, big red bars to see what I need to do within my organization. And of course, this is a web-based application, so you're able to view it on a smartphone or a tablet. If we have a look, let's have a look around the dashboard and see what we've got here. So we've got the two big red bars. Those are things I'm required to do, acknowledgement of a document. And on the right-hand side, I have my goals and achievements. These are competencies that have been assigned to me. And these could be things like onboarding process and various training packages that I'm required to do. And within these packages, you can attach one or more documents. You can attach any media, any video. A lot of my clients are doing training on their processes and procedures by rolling these out with supporting material that the users can watch and read. And then, if necessary, they will answer some questions as well. But of course, this dashboard isn't just for what I need to do in an organization. It also supplies me with a document dashboard where I can come in and I can go and find any documents that I need to read or follow. And I can rest assured that these are the most current versions of the documents. So this is your single source of truth place to go to for all your documents, whether they are in a published state or if someone's revising them. I'm assured that I have only the most recent version of the document. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and open up this particular competency called specification. And this is a specification of a product, and the product needs to be measured and monitored and to ensure a quality control process. And we're going to have a look, and we're going to acknowledge that we have understood this specification. When we click on this competency, it says I have one document attached to it, and I also have a quiz to do. If I open up the document, first of all, you can see that we have video content available over here. And of course, we have a Microsoft Word document, a specification document. Now, even though it's Microsoft Word, you can see it's rendered in a sort of PDF HTML format. That means I cannot make any changes on here. It's all controlled. But of course, I can read through this document and make sure I understood the contents. If I'm not sure about something, I can ask a question, and this question will be submitted to the document owner using the client normal email application. And as you can see, some questions have been asked before, and if that doesn't ask my question, I can certainly pose a new one. We also have the ability to raise a change request. So if I feel something is incorrect in this document, I can raise a change request, which is also submitted to the document owner, or I can request an exemption. But let's go ahead and acknowledge that we've read and understood this document. After we've done that, I click on the acknowledge button. We do support digital signatures, so I just need to put my username and password in here. And when I click acknowledgement, it will give me a 50% attainment level. And that is because even though I have acknowledged the document owner have felt it's necessary to include a quiz on the contents of this document. And this could be a policy, it could be a process, and it's just one step further of ensuring that your employees really understand the contents of the document. So let's keep going on this one, and we have a quiz over here, and we can click to take this assessment. If I fail this quiz, of course, I can redo it. And once I've answered the questions, I can then submit my response. Once again, we have a digital signature. And once I've completed that, I can submit my response. And now we can see I have achieved 100% on this particular document. And of course, specification is just an example. This could relate to any of your other documents within your organization. And I've achieved a achievement star over there on that particular competency. And we can see that I have achieved on others as well. Now, if I'm looking for any documents, I can browse all categories. I can go to my procedures. I've got some search functionality over here, so I can search for documents I would like to see. And I've also got some filtering on the right-hand side so that I can open these documents and view them. Thank you, Guy.
Thanks, Alec. Okay, so I'm sure all of us have had the experience of being a new employee at some time, and how confusing that can be. And if you've seen what Alec has just added here, there's a tremendous amount of functionality whereby the single truth can be packaged and communicated with the employee, and it really.
Guy, can I just interrupt you for a second? Guy, I'm just going to interrupt you. Jen, won't you pass the presentation back to me, please? No, to John. Goes to John, Jen. Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
All right. Excuse the technical issue there. So the point I'm making is that if you think about onboarding new employees, it's a very confusing time. Providing that employee with an environment which, in a very visual way, and remember I spoke about the tenets of improvement, and these are things that I've learned. If I look at a process and I find it's not visual. In other words, if I can't see some element of progress or a result, I tend mentally to switch off a little bit, and we find that trying to improve non-visual environments where there is no measurable progress is an extremely difficult task, and many times those are areas of the business that we neglect and are unable to improve. So the employee now is aware of the expectation. Different organizations can put the work instructions for those ISO savvy folk in the audience. You know that there's a lot of documents that are generated with ISO, but those are training documents and specifications. Many of them need to be filled out. Some of them need to be filled out, and they form the records or the currency of auditing. For ISO, we undergo a surveillance audit every 2 years, where the registrar, which is the third party administering body, will send out an auditor. And this is a stressful time for most organizations in ISO. And that auditor will spend 3-4 days sometimes on site, going through every aspect of the business as prescribed by the ISO standard, and asking for evidence, records of performance. And those records, when there is no mechanism or central repository for record keeping, can often become a huge gap and trip us up in recertification. So another exciting thing about SWORD is that it's a central repository. for the control of records. And Alex, maybe you can show us a little bit about generating those records and having that single point, that repository for easily putting records that are created in the process into the central repository.
Yes, sure. Thanks. Jenny, if you could just pass control to me. Thank you. All right, so we're on the same specification document, and in the specification of a typical product, and bear in mind, this could be related to a service as well. I'm just using a product as an example, but in here we have a form that we can fill in, and it's called the height gauge calibration log. And if we click on that, we can see previous records that have been created over here. We need to show that we are exercising measurement and measurability according to ISO standard. And of course, we can go in and we can record a measurement. So let's just give an example instrument that was used, and we can give it a serial number. Now, these forms that I'm filling in now can be created within the system by an administrator, and various fields can be added on here, multiple select, mutually exclusive, dates, and even conditions can be added as well, as we'll see shortly. And these can be added as many as you like, and you can also go ahead and fill in additional details. Once we submit this, we now have an additional record that will be added onto our records once it's published, and we can go back onto the document as an administrator, and we can see all the records that pertain to this particular document, and we can see all the details around those records. Thank you very much, Guy. Jenny, if you could hand back to John, please.
Thanks, Alec. Okay, so very easily records can be created and put into a central repository. And it really circumnavigates some of the wasteful events that occur in most organizations as we're approaching audit time. And of course, because it's electronic, those are basically fill and forget, if you like, and the ease of compliance. In other words, if we make compliance easy, human nature tells us that, of course, it'll happen a lot more readily than if somebody has to fill out, a manual document, maintain it in some filing system, and then transfer it over as time passes into a repository for archiving. We know that these are the things that collect dust, and compliance often is left far behind. So the next sort of progression of this document lifecycle within, and it doesn't just have to be ISO, but certainly ISO is a very good example, and I've found this in many organizations that I've worked with, right? The ISO documentation is we spend a lot of time and effort putting them together, publishing them, deploying those down to the organization, and lo and behold, they then sit and collect dust. The business environment changes. All sorts of things can change. We're all coming out of a COVID environment. We know that work habits have changed significantly, and that impacts how policy should become a living document rather than just a document that was published 2 years ago and that we try to pull out at every certification. And so the document creation process is very easy, made a lot easier with technology like SWORD. The document control and change management is a lot more dynamic and agile. And this is one of those tenets for improvement. If you can't change it, it won't change. And for us to improve and to stay fresh, we have to have an easy way to manage and change the documents that govern our compliance to different regulations. So, Alex, let's take a look at the change management process.
Yeah, sure, Guy. Thank you. All right, so I'm now logged in as an administrator, and I'm on my document dashboard. This is where all my documents reside in one place. And as you will notice, I can now see documents in various states. Unlike Mark Stevens, who can only see the current version of the document, I can have visibility on these for obvious purposes, auditing, etc., creation, and all my documents are stored right here. I can go ahead and search for a document, any keyword within there, for instance, if I'm looking for a particular form, for instance, and I can also sort these documents by various criteria. And we do have an advanced search functionality over here as well, where I can actually search within the contents of the Microsoft Word document to find any keywords. I can also filter by different kinds of documents. So if I only wanted to see my procedures and search through them, and similarly with other document types as well. Of course, I can also filter by different departments, documents that pertain to one particular department or even a site, because as we know, sometimes policies may differ across multiple geographies. So I can click on any of these documents and I can get a quick preview of this document, who's the document owner, etc. But I can also open it up in full view to see the details. But let's create a new document. So I want to show you how we create a new procedure based on a template that I've pre-created. Of course, you can create it from scratch, a blank one, but it's much easier if you create a template with a Microsoft Word template in there that already contains your logo. It's got all your metadata information in the header of the document. So if you were to print that document, you have all the compliant information on there already. So we click on the create icon over here. We choose a document and we choose the category we wish to create in. And you can see, as I said, I can create a blank one, or I can create one of a template, which I have already created. I've set it up. You can have as many templates as you like. They may be templates that are routed differently because they need to go to different people for review or approval, or the attachments in there differ somewhat. So let's click on that one and create. I'll open this up in full view. And let's just say this is our dress code policy procedure. More a policy title, but it's just an example. So here we have the Microsoft Word document attached in there. Let's just save that. And of course, I can open this up using Microsoft Word functionality. Microsoft Word functionality can also be used to track changes during the review and approval cycles, and we certainly can use all other Microsoft Word functionality. You can see that we are now able to edit this document, so I can put any content in there. This is obviously a container for my procedure, and I can save this directly back to Policy Manager without having to re-upload it from my desktop. I can also ensure that this document is targeted at the correct audience by selecting the site or the department that it's pertinent to. If we have a look at our review and approval tab, you can see I have predefined who my reviewers are going to be and who the approver is going to be. Of course, I can change this if I want to. I can have as many reviewers as I like and as many approvers as well. And I can send it in a series or parallel cycle or a combination of both. And we can specify that by staggering the position number. I can also distribute this document just for information purposes only, just to let persons know that a document has been published. They will receive an email, which is the primary source of communication, and the email will have a hyperlink to the actual document. But let's go ahead and submit this document for approval. We can then approve or reject this document. We can make comments. And as I said, you can make comments in the Microsoft Word document as well. And once this refreshes, we can see that we now have an approved document. We can either publish immediately or we can publish with effective date. And once this document is published, it'll then be viewable by the correct audience that was specified. Now, we also have document maintenance. As you know, we need to periodically review our documents to make sure they are up to date and effective. And because Sword Policy Manager has a built-in escalation engine, it will send automatic reminders when documents need to be reviewed, but not only for that, for all dates and times that need to be adhered to, like approval and review cycles as well. Over here, we have our change requests and feedback. If there are any questions on this document, they will be over here, and I can choose to add them to the FAQs or not, and I can answer them directly from here. But more importantly, we can control the contents of a document by responding to change requests. Change requests can be submitted by readers of the document, and we can respond to change requests by creating a new revision of the document now, or we can wait until the periodic review and make those changes, or of course we can reject the request to change altogether. We can also see our exemption requests directly from here. So if we get a change to change this document and we do decide to create a new revision, we can do that because we have the correct security role. We create a new revision, and you will see this one moves to under revision. It's still a relevant document. It's still current until the new one becomes published, of course. Over here, we have a new icon called revisions, and I can go and see all previous versions of this document. We can see that it's automatically moved the revision up to number 1 of our recent one. And once this one becomes published, our older version will then become superseded, and that will be automatically archived in the database. We also have an audit trail on all activities carried out on this document, when it was changed, who it was changed by, and it will even record the old field value and the new one if a field value was changed. We can go ahead and open the draft version of this document, and as you can see, it has retained our previous document, so we just need to update that, or we can replace it if necessary. And it's also kept our review and approval cycles and even our distribution as well. And we will take this through the workflow as we've seen before to move it to a state of published. We also have some help files. So if any users get stuck, we have some text help files, and we also have some video content as well that can be watched to help users through the process. And that's how we control changes in a controlled document. Thank you, Guy, and Jenny, over to John.
Thanks, Alec. I had a smile at your example of dress code policy. Anybody who's worked in Silicon Valley knows that that's one of those policies that is still collecting dust in a drawer somewhere. Very little adherence there. So we've looked at a number of aspects now. Here we have a system that can take what was previously on documents, collecting dust in a drawer perhaps, or verbal, or on spreadsheets, or even in a wiki, and it's now creating an ecosystem, a communication ecosystem that is visual, that allows us to put expectations in a very formalized and definitive way in front of every employee within the organization. And as Alec got out of the employee portal there and went into the sort of global view of policy management, You can put yourselves in the position of a manager thinking, okay, I've spent a lot of money in and investments in this ISO 9001 implementation. We've spent hundreds of hours defining and refining our policies and procedures so that we can move the organization into a continuous improvement collective habit. Where are we with that? And this is a challenge that faces most executives. Policy deployment or strategy deployment. It's one thing to write it out and say, this is what we got to do, and even to communicate it. But as you move forward, how are we doing? What is the progress of our compliance effort? And this is where, as we approach recertification audits, suddenly the bells are going off and everybody's running around preparing for the next audit. The beauty about having a system like this is that it becomes habit. Your alerts are going off as and when they need to go off. Employees are being reminded. Retraining is happening. Annual training is happening on an ongoing basis. They're not getting neglected. And what this does, it gangs up to ensure that the organization doesn't have to scramble for a recertification audit by the external registrar. And so those deployment, or at least the SWORD system allows us to see visually how far are we in our deployment effort. Of all the training that needs to take place, of all of the expectations that we've provided, how far are we with every one of those individual employees logging their completion and their training? And so Alec, let's take a look at the compliance auditing and that progress management, or at least measurement of where we stand in terms of our journey to compliance.
Sure, thanks, Guy. So we're going to move from our document dashboard into our compliance dashboard, and we will have visibility on our regulatory items that we have in here. We import a client's regulatory items directly into here. It doesn't just have to be ISO regulations. It can also be, as I've experienced with my other clients before, head office requirements or company requirements that need to be adhered to, and in some cases even government as well, depending on the country. The beauty on here as well is that sometimes we have documents that pertain to particular sites or departments, and we can filter these requirements based on that country or that particular department as well, and that'll give us a status of that. So, you know, for scalability purposes, we have the ideal situation being able to filter by those. Now, you will notice if we have a closer look at ISO 9001 down here, we have two scores. We have an implementation score and we have a communication score. So the implementation score is showing us that we have addressed 24 of the clauses within that standard, and the communication score shows us that of those documents that we've created that pertain to the clauses, we have communicated 10 out of the 26 that is required to be communicated. Now, this shows us that, you know, even though we create our policies and our procedures, how well have we communicated them? And as we know, during auditing time, sometimes those kind of questions are being asked of employees, whether they are aware of particular policies or procedures as well. So let's go and drill down into ISO 9001, where we can view the individual clauses over here, and we can see that some of them have been addressed, and we can see which documents actually pertain to that clause, and we can even open the document up over here. So during recertification, it's quite easy to go in and show how we have addressed those clauses and how we are maintaining them. If we scroll down as well, we can go and see the various clauses that have been addressed, and we can do a bit of a gap analysis on what we still need to do within the application, within our organization, to make sure that we are compliant. And we can see our document that we've been looking at earlier, and we can certainly open it up directly from here as well. And this is the one with our records that we have intact, and we can go and view our records in here and see all our responses for those records that we have over here. And we can close that and go back to our dashboard. And we have full view on what is our level of attainment. And, you know, it begs the question, how do we measure compliance? And we have level indicators here that can help with that. Thank you, Guy. Jenny, if you can switch over to John again, please.
Thanks, Alec. So this is a tremendously, certainly from the management perspective, it's a tremendously valuable tool to have so that you can watch and monitor progress, even for things that have traditionally been extremely abstract, like policy deployment down through an organization. You know, in previous lives, we've often used the little term "no surprises." We don't want surprises in an audit. We want to have a predictable audit. We want to know where we're strong, where we're weak, and even when a third party comes in and audits our facility, we want to be expecting that. We want to have corrective actions in place, and so these are the things that ensure no surprises. Now, of course, coming back to the audit and inevitably there's going to be some sort of a gap analysis that arises out of that, but we're well taken care of with the SWORD product because there's a myriad of reports and individual dashboards that once corrective actions are articulated, again, we use the same superstructure, if you like, to deploy those countermeasures, the actions associated with achieving some of those countermeasures. And SWORD has some great functionality and dashboarding, and it makes compliance not just visual for the management, but also down to all levels of the organization. And that really, coming back to those tenets of improvement, what do you want to see in place in order to ensure that a piece of the organization can start to improve? Well, participation, right? Making sure that the people that actually do the job every day, those are the experts. Those are the people that we want to author a lot of our how do we create a policy that suits the standard. And so we want that input. And so we have to give them an environment as well to customize and to be part of the process. So Alec, maybe you can show us a little bit more of the dashboarding and even the what if analysis that people can do by extracting data out of the system and putting it into Excel and doing some of those what if analysis offline before they come back with a more educated suggestion or feedback.
Yeah, sure, Gar. So we're going to move from our compliance dashboard onto our reporting dashboard. Now, each user will have their own personal dashboard with their favorite reports that they can access quickly and easily. And you can add these reports from an existing document library that ships with Policy Manager. And you do have the ability as well to create new reports, whether it's just extracting data from the system, or you'd like to create a report that's specific to certain organizations. We have a list of admin tools over here, and we can use the manage queries to create a report, and we can put that on in our report library, and of course add it to our reporting dashboard. There are other tools available here as well where we can do bulk updates on documents. Sometimes, we have a lot of requests where persons leave an organization and they own a certain number of documents, and you can update those quickly and easily using the bulk update tool. You can specify security on individual categories, whether it's site, department, or even document type as well. There's users and groups where you can create groups, and you can import users into those groups, and that can be used for various job titles if you're distributing to specific job titles within your organization, or even to create a group of reviewers or approvers that we would like to submit documents to. And there's some other tools available here as well. If we go back to my reporting dashboard, I can drill down into these individual reports. I can view the data behind it. In this particular report, I can see the status of acknowledgements. So who has acknowledged certain documents and which are outstanding, and I can see the document in question. I can see who needs to acknowledge it, and I can see the state of that acknowledgement as well. I can also export to various formats like Excel spreadsheet. And once I open that, we can see that we have some filters on the top here, and I can go ahead and filter by different states as well, or any of the other columns as well. So if I just wanted to see who has yet to acknowledge this document, I can certainly see that when it was created, the document title, and I have a hyperlink to the document in my Excel spreadsheet as well. We'll close that and go back to our reporting dashboard. We can also filter our reports and by department and site, just like our compliance dashboard. Thank you very much, Guy. Over to you, John. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Alec. So just to recap, and that kind of brings to a close the demonstration piece of it. But just to recap on, all of us in whatever role we play within organizations, we get up in the morning wanting to do a good job and go and improve the value that we deliver to our customers, and often the expectation by the organization is at odds with that. What SWORD brings, and it struck me when I was initially reviewing the software, not that this technology is brand new, but what SWORD has done is has in a very effective way put together a communication ecosystem that is very conducive to policy management and risk management within an organization. And selfishly, what I really like about it is it lends itself to those tenets of improvement that are so important in a lean transformation, where an organization is wanting to get rid of the traditional bureaucracies and waste. And it takes those hidden and abstract areas of policy deployment, makes them visual, right? And as it says up on the screen, it easily communicates expectations, monitors the performance, provides those standards readily available, and alerts and warns when things are abnormal. And so the visual management is alive and well now in some of these abstract pieces of the business. It promotes participation. It's not a policy that is divorced from reality and change for the better, improvements, Kaizen. It's very easy. Just like your iPhone, it doesn't require a long set of instructions on how to go about being compliant. In fact, the easiest path, which lends itself to human nature, is simply to comply, right? And of course, nothing can improve if it cannot be measured. And so what SWORD does is allows us to measure our levels of compliance all the way down to each individual employee. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. Back to you, John.
Well, thanks very much, Guy. You're always a wealth of knowledge, so I appreciate it. And Alec, you did a great job as well with the demo there. I do see we have a couple of questions here, Alec. I don't know if we've got about 10 minutes left. We want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I think if you want to take a look at those questions and just back to some housekeeping, if we don't get to your question that you've asked, we'll try and reach out to you. And if you think of a question, you can grab my email address down the bottom there, send an email to me, and I will make sure I get a question answered if you have a question off that comes to mind in the future. Or if you want any other information, reach out to me and I'll make sure I get you connected with the right people. And let's go back to Alec and see if you can answer those few questions that we have with this remaining 8 or 9 minutes, please, Alec.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, John. Okay, so
sorry, do you want me, Jen? Can you pass the script? Thank you.
Okay, so we have a question here that says, can I update my ISO standards in the SWORD system? So, as I said, let me start by sharing my screen and I'll show you how we do that. So we've had this question many times. We've got our standards in the system. How do we make sure that they remain up to date? How can we edit them? So in the admin tools here, we have a tool called Manage Categories. And if we click on that, we can easily go to our different categories that we have, like our departments, like our sites, and of course here is our obligations, and we can go ahead and edit these on an individual basis. We can add new ones as well. We can add subcategories underneath. We can also use this to export our existing standards into an Excel spreadsheet. We can update that Excel spreadsheet and we can import it back into the application. And these are tools that we supply with the product, and just to make sure that our valued client can keep the system up to date, not only with company growth, but as new standards come on board or they change as well. The next question I see is, how do I see who is certified for certain jobs, especially if I need to move someone around because of an absence? So we know that we have been looking at competencies, and competencies, of course, as I said, can relate to specific job roles, for instance. And what we have is a dashboard I didn't show you, was we have a people dashboard where we can see all our employees in our organization. And if we go to our competencies, we can see that we have them listed over here. They are active. We can see an attainment level. And if we click on our internal auditing competency, for instance, we can quickly and easily see the records that are on there, and we can see who has attained that competency and who is qualified to do certain job roles within an organization. So that's how we would see our different competencies in here. The next question is, how do we target competency to specific department? Okay, so over here, if I open the same competency, but I'll open it up in full view, is when you create these competencies or distribution plans, it's not a case of submitting it to everyone within the organization. Sometimes they are only for certain sites or departments. And if we have a look at this existing one, we have selected site A, B, and C for this specific one, and department C, and we can choose between them, and we can also add individual persons. So if I wanted to add, for instance, another person in there, I can just click on their name, individual persons, whole sites, whole departments, and I can even exclude users. Sometimes, you want to select the whole department except for someone specific. So you can certainly do that in the targeting as well. Once we update that, these records will update. And we must remember that this is also tied to the built-in escalation engine, where the escalation will at least once a day go in and update these records, because sometimes employees may change departments, and if they change departments, then sometimes the requirements change as well. So the requirement that they had for the previous department will become no longer required, and for the new department they will have a new set of requirements. And of course the system is clever enough to know if you've covered one in the previous department as well. The final one is easy. So does SWORD integrate with Active Directory? Yes, of course. So we had a look at the people dashboard over here, where I can see all my employees, and if I click on them, I can see the details of this employee, and I can even see their various competencies that they need to adhere to. Okay. And I think that's all the questions we have time for. If the others, John, you'll have a list of them and distribute them accordingly. But I'll hand back to you, John. Thank you, Jenny.
Well, again, thanks everybody for coming today, and thanks to Guy and Alec for their time and the great demonstration they gave, and we will be reaching out to everybody and to see if there's any more questions, and if we can find out more about your particular situation and how we can use SWORD to help you with either your ISO or any other policies and procedures or regulatory compliance requirements that you have. So thanks for everybody for joining. It looks like we got a few minutes. Going to finish up a few minutes early, so hopefully you can get to lunch and have a bit of an early lunch, or go and take a coffee break. But thanks everybody, and look forward to speaking to you in the future and working with you guys.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.